You're one decision away from your life changing dramatically.
Maha Abouelenein is a global communication strategist, powerhouse entrepreneur, and for the first time, she's sharing her inspirational story.
I never believed in myself. I never believed that I was capable of doing things. I was playing small.
How do you find that confidence?
I realized the change I wanted to see, I have to create for myself. And so I reverse engineered. And I became a best-selling author because I was willing to put in the hard work. I was willing to outwork anybody. There's 4 things you need to do to write a best-selling book. I'm going to do 10. I'm going to do pre-orders, I'm going to do corporate sales, I'm going to do bookstores, I'm going to do everything because I want to make sure that I've tested myself, that I didn't leave anything on the floor, that I really put in effort. Then my dad got sick. His disease was terminal and they told him you will live about a year. It was devastating. What are the odds that I have 2 parents with neurological diseases who both need full-time nursing care? I ran a mini hospital in my house. I had 2 nurses per shift, 3 shifts a day per parent. Then I had to have a cook who would blend their meals because they both had feeding tubes. I had to go to work every day. I had to make all the medical decisions. I feel the importance of taking care of your family and showing up for your family is the most important thing I think in life. And when I think about all my accomplishments in my career and all the cool things I've done, it pales into comparison to properly doing everything I could for my mom and dad. And every success I had in my life after they both passed away, I feel it's because I'm living off the blessing of my parents. And I wrote this book because I wanted 2 people to read it.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to Conversations with Lulu. My guest is a communications guru and a best-selling author, having launched her book, 7 Rules of Self-Reliance. I am super excited to be hosting Maha Abouelenein today. We're going to be talking about personal branding and striking out on your own and reinventing yourself no matter at what age by mastering the art of being self-reliant. Maha is the founder of Digital and Savvy, a global communications firm with offices in the United States and the US. Maha works with celebrities like Gary Vee, Dr. Deepak Chopra, Matt Higgins, and she has advised CEOs and politicians. Previously, Maha helped Weber Shandwick expand across the MENA region. Maha, it's so great to have you today.
Thank you, Lulu.
I want to start by congratulating you on the amazing book and for getting to the bestseller list.
Yes.
Which is pretty phenomenal. I read the book over the past 2 days. I couldn't drop it. I couldn't let it go. I had to finish it. I found the stories very relatable, very practical. The way you speak, I felt it was so authentic. I loved it.
Thank you.
It felt like I was speaking to my sister, which I don't have a sister, but it really felt like someone who is giving us great advice.
Thank you, Lulu. I just came for an event and she texted me afterwards and she said, the way you talked to us, I felt like we were in a room with our sister. It's so funny that you just said that.
Yeah.
I'm so happy to be back in the region because a lot of the stories in the book came from here. Mm-hmm. And I found myself here and I made my name for myself here and my career was built here. So coming home, talking about this book, sharing the stories, it means so much to me beyond words that I can explain to you right now. And I'm really proud of it. Thank you for reading it. Thank you for spending time with it. Every single person who buys my book, it means so much to me, so much to me.
How does it feel? Did you savor it? Or is it on to the next milestone? Did you tap yourself on the back? How do you feel about it?
It's so funny because when we came to do the book, I was like, I want to be a bestseller. I want to be a bestseller. And all my team was like, just writing a book is enough. That is huge. It's massive. And It's only been 3 weeks. We were bestseller on Amazon in the US day 1. I looked up, we were Amazon #1 in the UAE as well. You hope that you write something worth reading. You hope that you write something worth people finding value in it and taking, not just inspiration from it, but practical advice. It's so rewarding. I can't tell you, for me, I was sitting on the airplane going from Miami to Chicago. And I get up after the flight and there's a gentleman right in front of me who was reading a book on the flight. And, after you get up, you kind of put your stuff in your suitcase or your handbag and you get off the plane. He was reading my book. And I almost cried because I was like, what? And then he had it he wears a 4-hour flight from Miami to Chicago. He had it underlined and Post-it notes. Nice. And he was into it. And he's like, I said, oh, you're reading that book? And he's like, yeah. He's like, I got halfway. I want to finish it. Yeah. But the flight ended. And I said, oh, I wrote that book. And he's like, you're serious? Can I take a picture? And then he knew all my stories because they're in the book. Because I share a lot about me in the book that I've never shared before. And so he was asking me all these questions about what he had read. And so it was a very odd and honorable and charming moment all at the same time.
Do you think you're happy calling yourself an author now?
It's funny to say that, but yeah, I do. I introduce myself as an author, a best-selling author.
Best-selling author. You started your book, right? Telling the story about how you were often put in positions where you were offered opportunities and you always felt like, why me? Why do they think that I can do it? For example, when you start by talking about how you worked with the Egyptian prime minister, right? What was his name?
Dr. Ahmed Nazif.
Yes. So that was back in 2009, right? So
it was a long time ago, and he asked me to write him a speech, or the Secretary General asked me to write a speech, and I'm like, if they believe I can do it, why don't I believe I can do it? Because I'm like, I'm not a policy speech writer. I don't work in government. I'm not even a speech writer.
Yeah.
And they said, we really want you to write the speech for us. And it caused me to pause. I'm like, well, if they think I can do it, why don't I think I can do it? Oftentimes, we don't have confidence in ourselves when we should.
Yeah.
We know what's best for us. We know what we're capable of doing. We just either haven't tested ourselves, we haven't tried, or we don't believe we can because limited beliefs in our head, distractions from others, comparison from others where we don't think we're ready, we don't think we want to, or we don't think we're capable of it.
I think imposter syndrome is quite 100%. Real, right? I think 100%. everybody faces it, men and women, but particularly women.
And I've had my business for 20 years. 16 years, I was the managing director. Only when I moved to the US in 2020 did I say, you know what, Maha, you're CEO. Time to own the title. I was playing small because I thought managing director is what women's titles are, or it shows that I'm in charge, but I'm not trying to be a CEO. Like that's imposter. That's for a big company or for a man. Or I really believed that managing director was good enough.
But if someone didn't come to you and ask you to do these things that were like out of your comfort zone, right? How would you have approached it? Because you were in a situation where, people came to you, and I mean, obviously you were in the right place at the right time. So I'm sure there's a lot of that right in there. But then they came and they asked you and you stepped up. But let's say if people didn't come and ask you, how do you find that confidence?
Well, I was a waiter. One of the rules of the book, rule number 3, is don't be a waiter. I was sort of waiting for people to discover me, or waiting for people to give me opportunities, or waiting for an opportunity to come to me on a silver platter, or someone to give me a promotion. I was waiting for people to give me what I thought I deserved. And a lot of times, what I realized through this exercise that I went through at that period of my life was that the change I wanted to see, I have to create for myself. And if I didn't have the confidence to do it, I had to figure out a way to make it happen. So I reverse engineered. Do I need to get skills? Do I need to build relationships? Do I need to get more experience before I can tackle something like that? And I think a lot of times we feel, and I'm saying this from my own experience to relate to others, we're waiting for opportunities to come to us when there's never going to be a good time.
Yeah.
We feel that we are afraid of failure, so we wait. We're afraid of people judging us, so we wait. We're going to wait until we lose weight. We're going to wait until we get more money in the bank account. We're just going to wait for things to be in a better position. My message to you is there's never going to be a better time. Take the first step. And one of the things I learned working for a lot of tech companies is they have this concept of launch and iterate. We're going to launch the product and iterate it when it gets out to the market, see how it works, see how the market reacts, make adaptations after the users get their hands on it. You need to do the same thing with yourself. Launch and iterate.
And if you don't necessarily know what you want, again, I go back to the story that you told of how you were approached to write the speech for the prime minister. And then you said in the book, you said, well, I guess I'm a writer then, right?
Yeah.
So after you had that experience. So I guess it's maybe digging into, I think you also say, look at your CV, right?
Yeah.
So dig into what you've done before.
Yeah. Give yourself that confidence.
Because sometimes you don't know, right? Like, I mean, I was recently at a conference in Istanbul and I was on a panel talking about building brand identity on LinkedIn, right? So I'm a LinkedIn top voice, but I mean, I've never spoken about LinkedIn, nor have I ever considered myself a LinkedIn expert, right?
Yeah.
And then after I did this panel, and I was like, oh, I guess I
I'm a
can talk
LinkedIn
about
expert.
building your brand online. Is that, how it works?
For the situation I was in with the prime minister, he asked me to write the speech. I'd never written that policy speech before. And I'm like, I got to figure this out. I didn't really have a choice. And I was like, I'll just take this information, go work on it at home where I can just kind of figure it out and sweat in private. But they said, no, you need to work on it in this room at Secretary General's office. The papers stay here. It's confidential. And I was in my own head. And the one thing that switched it for me was I said, what would I want to hear if I'm in the audience? And then it started to flow because I put myself in the shoes of the consumer. I got out of my own head. And I think a lot of times we're in situations where we're overthinking it. We're overjudging ourselves.
Yeah.
Nobody's judging you as much as you're judging yourself. Period. The end. And so every time I was encountered a job or a position that I've had to do something that was challenging for me, I was like, okay, what can I really solve right now? How do I break it down into steps that I feel can be manageable so that I don't overwhelm myself? Yeah, I feel like if you get asked to do something you've never done before, for me, I got lucky that I got challenged many times in my life. How was I going to step up and get these results or learn these skills if I didn't get asked? Would I have the initiative or the drive? I was a waiter. I was always waiting. I didn't back then. So I wouldn't have gotten these opportunities because I didn't know, I'm the one who should drive my career. I'm the one who's capable of creating the opportunities I wanted to see in my life. Back then, I was waiting. I wouldn't have had any of these experiences because people challenged me because they believed in me or they thought I had skills. I never believed in myself.
Yeah.
I never did. I never believed that I was capable of doing things. And one of my friends came to me and said, oh, I was down and out on something. I'm like, I don't think I can do this. She said, go read your CV.
You have to maybe do these small tasks or these small wins that help you build that confidence.
To get that confidence. Yeah, it matters. It matters a lot. I feel like a lot of times, you don't know what you're capable of doing unless you've been asked to do it.
Yeah.
And a lot of times we might sit on the sidelines and not take an attempt at something like, well, I've never done that before. I don't think I should do it. Don't wait for someone to ask you. Go try and see what the results will be. You'll learn a lot about yourself. You'll learn about what you're capable of. I've never written a book before. I have no idea how to write a book. I'm not an author. I didn't wake up going, oh, I'm going to be an author one day. I do storytelling. I do communications, but not in this format. It was a lot of learning. It was a lot of, what am I capable of doing? There's 4 things you need to do to write a best-selling book. I'm going to do 10. And my team was like, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm going to do everything. I'm going to do pre-orders. I'm going to do corporate sales. I'm going to do bookstores. I'm going to do, podcasts. I'm going to do press. I'm going to do speaking. I'm going to do everything because I want to make sure that I've tested myself, that I didn't leave anything on the floor, that I really put in effort. And I became a best-selling author because I was willing to put in the hard work. I was willing to outwork anybody. I still am learning, I'm going to write another book, but now I know the cycle and what to do. But it was an incredible experience that changed me a lot because it challenged me in more ways that I ever didn't even know were possible. People don't write books because they're money makers. It's a platform for, your expertise and sharing your stories.
Thought leadership, right?
It's thought leadership, it's expertise, it's credibility. But it's allowing me, so a lot of people, I have a communications firm. I do strategic communications. I help companies and brands build their stories and tell their stories. The Googles of the world, the Netflixes of the world, the Gary Vees, the Deepak Chopras, the Jim Quicks, the Matt Higgins, the Halle Berrys. Those are people I work with. And, taking on an element of a book and writing your career, writing your story, but making it valuable for the reader is the biggest challenge. Who cares about my story? Who cares about communications? How do I make it relevant for the reader? And the minute you start thinking about how to create value for others, the less it is about you and more about them. And so I learned, I got to put my reader first. I got to make sure that there's relevant stories that people can relate to. I put at the end of every chapter exercises so people can put the rules to work.
What was your ultimate wish? If someone read your book, what do you want them to think, do, feel?
Honestly, I have a 25-year-old nephew and a 22-year-old niece. And I wrote this book because I wanted 2 people to read it. Honestly, I'm happy that it's a bestseller and everyone's reading it, but it was more so for my niece and nephew to know me as their aunt, to know how I turned my struggles into a strength, how I turned some of my setbacks into comebacks, to understand the power of relying on yourself and stepping up for yourself first before asking people to help you. That was what drove me. That's what was the fire in my belly of like, why do I need to write this book? It's because I have two people that I care about deeply, that I want them to know more about me and what they can do with this book, and they can do with their lives if they practice some of these rules. Now, a lot of people have read it. People have listened to it. I had the book came out on the 8th of October. The next day at night, someone had finished the entire audiobook. Mm-hmm. And he said to me, when I read the book, I got more confidence to trust myself. Because ultimately, Lulu, the answers are within us.
Absolutely.
We are the ones, either through distractions or comparison, or other people think I can't do this, or I shouldn't do this, or I fear judgment. And so I that's my ultimate goal, is to people have confidence in knowing that you can drive anything you want to see in your life, and absolutely anything. I believe it.
I fully agree. It does come from within. That's for sure. I think it just takes time for you to realize that.
Yeah.
I think age helps.
Yeah.
Right? Like I feel much more confident today than I was probably 10 years ago.
Yeah, 100%. Same for me. Same for me.
It helps, I think.
Yeah. Time
That's
gives
all the
you
work you put in yourself as well.
Time gives you the benefit of experience, of failure, because failure is the key to my success. If I didn't fail, I wouldn't be successful. Time allows you to reflect. So you can look back about, what are you proud of? What are you not proud of? I've done things I'm not proud of. I've done things that have been failures. I've been fired from jobs. I've lost, people and opportunities because I didn't handle things. Nobody's life is an up and to the right. Mm-hmm. It's peaks and valleys. It's good days and bad days, economic downturns, economic high. I mean, it's just life, right? And so making sure that you are being intentional about everything you try to do. How do you create value for people? How do you build the best relationships? And knowing that if you make efforts and if you work hard, it'll pay off in one way or another. I believe it.
Failure, I think, is such a big thing, especially here in our part of the world. Everybody talks about the fact that no one talks about it.
Yeah.
And no one likes to talk about it. And I think it's hard. I've also failed across many things as well. And it just feels very personal. Actually, in fact, I think I have a quote from you. You said it. I was tying my self-worth and identity to my achievements, so failure felt like a direct hit to my self-esteem. These are your words. So why is it so hard? I mean, I know in the US, you've lived in both worlds, right? In the US, I think it's celebrated almost. It's so normal. Whereas here, it's different. Or do you feel it's the same across like you?
No, I think it's different. I think, so much about how, because I come from both cultures and both worlds.
So you're Egyptian and
I'm
American.
100% Egyptian, born and raised in the US, lived in the US till I was 27, moved to Egypt at 27, lived in the Middle East for 23 years, moved back to the US when I was 50, 50 years old, during a pandemic, starting a company over from scratch, building my PR firm there, re-entering a market without having 23 years of relationships and friendships in the US. It was hard. 4 years I've been back now. I mean, I come to the region every month. I'm here a lot. But to move to Egypt at 27, not speaking Arabic, not having any friends, having to build myself over from scratch at 27, moving in with my parents at a time when most people in the US were moving out of living with their parents, trying to build a career. My mother is very sick. She's 100% handicapped, disabled, needs help eating, bathing, clothing. I had to find a job, and then I had to do it again when I re-entered back into the US. And in both sides of my life, in both the US and here, failure was the thing that stretched me the most, grew me the most, humbled me the most, taught me the most about what I don't want to feel like. Oh, that felt so bad. I don't want to feel that way again. What can I learn from some of the mistakes I've made, the people that I've hurt, or the moves I made in my career that probably weren't the smartest moves? And so I feel like if we don't take time to sit and listen to our failures, if we don't take time to listen and reflect and say, oh, I need to have a level of self-awareness. I can't just be walking around doing this because it has consequences. How can I be a better person? How can I be a better team player? How can I be a better ally to friends at work or to people in my neighborhood or at home? I feel like it matters. And I feel that comes with age of spending that time reflecting. But it also, for anyone who's reading this book, who is a young adult, who is somebody who is starting in their career as an entrepreneur, take the notes, build the relationships, make deposits in other people's trust banks, because you will need to make that withdrawal. And if you have a good reputation and you've been a good time taking care of people and building relationships, it's an easy ask.
Yeah, I love that. I often say, people wait too long until they start building a network.
Yeah.
And then they go straight for the ask.
Yeah, you can't go straight for the ask.
I mean, it's like, I always tell people, imagine real life, right? Real life, I meet you for the first time. I can't come and say, hey, I'm Lulu, invest in my company. It doesn't work
that way. Yeah. I call it making deposits in people's trust banks.
I love that.
And you do it consistently. Consistently do good deeds, goodwill, introduce them to someone they care about, send them an article about something they care about, share their work on your social media to show that you're showing up for them. Truly be there for other people. You can't do it one to many. You can do it with a certain handful of people, but your network is not there to serve you.
Yeah.
You are there to serve your network.
Absolutely.
And if you do a good job of serving your network, then they will bring you into their network. That's how it works. I saw Faizi Ghandour in FII in Saudi. I haven't seen Fadi since I left. I left 4 years ago, and then I probably didn't see him right before. I haven't seen him maybe for 5, 6, 7 years. But he's someone that I've always known and I've always had a huge amount of respect for. When you make a deposit in someone's trust bank over years, you can make that withdrawal.
Absolutely.
And then I told him about the book and he's like, I had one copy on me and I was just carrying it around with me. And then he's like, I want that copy. I gave him the copy of the book. And then he's like, you have to come speak and we'll do something. And I'm like, because I've done good work for him. I've put deposits in his trust bank and that I can ask him like, oh, Fadi, I'd love to come speak. Can we do something together? And he's like, of course.
Yeah.
That's how it works.
And the word is that you said years.
15 years. I've known him for 20 years.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, people still go for the ask immediately. I don't get it.
Yeah. You have your network. You bring value to them, serve them, really nurture that relationship. And when you need something, then you can ask, but only after you've made multiple deposits.
Yeah. Is there something you tell yourself as you recover from the process? When you realize, a failure doesn't need to be catastrophic, right? It could be something you said to someone that upset them, or right?
So, we have limiting beliefs where we say negative things to ourselves. I say this all the time to myself. Everything's going to be okay. Everything's going to be okay. Everything's going to be okay. It's not the end of the world.
Yeah.
I always even at work with my team, I'm like, you guys, if you make a mistake, I want them to feel safe enough to come tell me, that they made a problem or they did a mistake or they published something or sent something to a client that was a big, big mistake. I want them to feel safe enough to come be able to tell me that they did it and everything's going to be okay because it is. As long as nobody's dead.
Yeah.
As long as nobody died.
Yeah.
Everything is going to be okay. And when I face these failures in my life, I'm like, okay, I failed. I own it. I take accountability for it. And then I say, everything's going to be okay.
I learned it from my therapist. She always tells me, this too shall pass.
Yes.
It's, no matter how bad it is, it will
we overthink
will
it. We make things bigger in our heads than they probably are in real life.
Yeah.
Nobody's judging you as much as you're judging yourself.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think it's not a great feeling to have to fail at something, especially once you've put in so much of yourself in it.
And you put it on social or you put it out in public and people see it and you've talked about it and then you got to undo it.
Especially with media, I think today media has the tendency to really lift you up if they like you, if you're a certain maybe profile that they'd like to
so
elevate,
how do you do the pivot in public?
Yeah.
That's literally what my job is. I help people build and protect their reputations, but what if they make a mistake? What if a crisis hits? A couple things. One is I try to not let too much time go because the longer, let's say you make a mistake and something happens, the longer you wait to address it, the more space there is for misinformation, rumors, other narratives to take shape. If you made a mistake, you got to come out, you got to own it, take accountability, show empathy, and say you made a mistake. That's the first step. The second thing you do is you take a pause and you take a space and you get out of the light for a little bit, just so you can regroup yourself, regroup what you're going to do for next steps. Do you need to make policy changes at your company? Do you need to implement new training within the organization because we don't want to make that mistake again? Like, you need to disappear for a while from the public eye.
After you've said sorry.
After you've apologized, and go away and do the hard work on yourself, on your team, on whatever it is that got you to that mistake in the first place. Because if you're doing it in public, it's like doing maintenance on a car when it's driving down the street. Everyone can see it. So first thing is apologize and do it quickly, transparently, show empathy, shorten the gap for any rumors or misinformation. Second thing is make sure that you are stepping away to do the work that you need to do, and then regroup and come back and say, okay, when I do come back, let's say you were doing this, you took this high profile job, you took this job, you got fired from this job, you got into the CEO, you crashed and burned, and now you got to come back and you have a career still, you have jobs, you have bill to pay, you have a family to feed, you have responsibilities. You don't want to be, sadly enough, our names and our titles go hand in hand with each other, right? So you want to be able to come back with a new, fresh face and not people judging you for other mistakes that you've made in the past. We know of countless CEOs and celebrities who have been canceled because they didn't handle things right. And so I think being articulate about what your narrative is, who you are, what your values are, be authentic about it, and be consistent.
Great advice. Maha, we started off with saying that you took a job, or let's say, you were offered opportunities that you didn't feel really necessarily qualified for, and then you took those opportunity and you showed up and you delivered and you did great. But you also took an opportunity that you speak about in your book, which you felt you are overqualified for.
I was dying, yeah.
You took a job. Actually, I'll let you tell the story.
Yeah. So when I moved to Egypt, I was 27. Yeah. I had been working in the US at General Mills, Fortune 500 company, doing sports marketing for of the now brands and the coolest projects. I was like on top of the world. But I moved back to Egypt for personal reasons. My mom was very sick and my parents said, like, we're going to leave the US. We've been here forever. We're going to go home. And I couldn't find a job. I was like, okay, I'm American educated, American employed. I want to work at an American company in Cairo. So there's 4 American companies in Cairo. Oh, actually there's 5, but I didn't apply to that one. There was Pepsi, there was Coca-Cola, there was P&G, and then Unilever, which is European. And I was like, I want to work at an American company because I know the business, I know the style. I want to get a marketing job. That was like
probably
1997.
Well.
Yeah, 1997. You wanted the brand marketing job at the consumer package companies, the CPGs, or fast moving consumer goods company, FMCG. Couldn't find a job. So I started interviewing at local companies. There was like the Sweedy family, there was the Sawiris family, and there was the Mansour family. There were 3 big families that owned all the companies in Egypt. So I applied at the Sawiris family. I went and interviewed with all the 3 brothers. There was Nassif, there was Naguib, and there was Samih. And Nassif works in construction. I'm like, oh my God, that's like hard. I can't do that. Samih works in like tourism. And I really liked Guna, and he had Haram Beverages at the time. And then I met with Naguib, and Naguib is tech. At the time, he had the licenses for Cisco and HP, fax machines and routers. This is 1997, you guys. The internet, still not a thing.
Not in Egypt.
No, they were just launching ISPs, but like internet service providers. This is back when it was like, AOL and Yahoo. Like this is before everything that we know as modern day internet today exists. And Naguib offered me a job to be his secretary. And I went home like mortified. I was like, what? Like, I have a master's degree. I'm American educated. I've been working for 6 years. I'm going to be a secretary sitting outside his office, answering phones, scheduling meetings, greeting guests, getting coffee. Of course, I didn't know in the Middle East, there's office boys that get the coffee. So I didn't know, like, I had no idea. But I was like, I feel like I'm overqualified. Like, I'm capable of doing more than that. Like, I feel like this job is too small for me. And I went home that night to my father and I'm like, Dad, he offered me to be a secretary. Like I thought I was going to get like a marketing manager role or something where I was like a junior marketing assistant. Like I'm willing to start like in the beginning, entry level. And I was like, this is like terrible. Like, I don't want to take this job. And my dad was like, you just moved here and you don't know anybody. And you get a chance to work with someone like Naguib, you're going to learn a tremendous amount. And you have to go in and put in the hard work and do what he wants. And you put in the hard work and let your work speak for itself and show him who you are. Make the job what you want it to be. Show him what you're capable of. Learn how to be a pleasure to work with. You want everybody who comes in to meet him to say, Maha's a pleasure to work with. Like, you're going to network with everybody who has to go to his office has to go past you. I literally sat outside his door. So they would literally have to walk past. He's like, you're going to meet everybody in Egypt. I was upset with his advice. And he's like, you're going to go tomorrow and you're going to tell Naguib you're taking that job. So the next day I walked in, I accepted the job, and it changed my life forever. It was the best advice I ever took. It was the best learning experience of my life. If you get a chance to work close to the sun for a CEO, a chairman, day-to-day operations of a conglomerate of that size or stature, don't worry about how much you're going to earn. Think about what you're going to learn.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I did. And I put my head down and I just worked. I read every piece of paper going in the office, out of the office. I studied, I networked, I got to know everybody. And then I was out, Naguib, I'd like to do this. I'd like to volunteer. Can I sit in on this meeting? I was in Arabic zanana. Like I was just like nagging him, give me a responsibility, give me something to do. And he's like, okay, fine. Cause I was like in his ear. He said, we're going to apply for a license. And in every mobile license, there's a commercial, technical, and financial offer. Technical offers by the CTO, how do you design the microwave stations, the network. The CFO will write the business plan and the financial offer. And you, Maha, are going to write the commercial offer. First of all, in the US, we don't use the term commercial. It's like commercial is like sales and marketing, like a commercial director of sales and marketing. I didn't even know that. I moved to Egypt and we like their marketing directors or sales directors. And so basically, Naguib puts us in a conference room and I have to write the tender, like launching due. What's the prepaid? What's the postpaid? What's the sales strategy? What's the marketing strategy? Mm-hmm. What's the creative campaign? What does the branding look like? I have no idea how to do any of this, but I relied on myself and I figured it out. We won a license. Then we won a second license, a third license. We won 18 licenses. And then after we did that, Naguib's like, okay, we need to go launch them. So going into the markets. And then I ended up working on the largest IPO in the history of Egypt. The largest, Roscom Telecom listed on the London Stock Exchange and the Egyptian Stock Exchange. And then I worked on the largest acquisition in the history of Egypt. Naguib acquired Telecel in Africa. And then I got to go work on due diligence. I mean, it was an extraordinary learning experience. I started as his secretary and I ended my tenure with Naguib as business partners. I said, I did what he wanted for about 4 years. I said, I'd like to open a PR firm in the Middle East. And he's like, okay, well, let's open one. I said, no. I don't want a mom and pop shop. I want a global PR firm and bring it to the region. And at the time, Hill & Knowlton was in Dubai, but they didn't have any other PR firms in the region. And I worked at Weber Shandwick in the US. So I said, let's go get Weber Shandwick. Let's be business partners with them. Let's bring them to the market. I opened 18 offices for Weber Shandwick, became the regional managing director and ran the Cairo operation. And then the story unfolded from there.
What I love about what you said is that I think there's a message here, which is take pride in your job and like do the best you can do, even if you think the job is menial or beneath you, right? I mean, I think it's very important.
It was so humbling.
Like do it well.
Yeah.
Even if it's a secretary.
Yeah.
And no offense, by the way. Like secretaries, but whatever the job is.
Yeah, whatever the job is, nothing is beneath you. And actually, it was the perfect learning ground. So when I started my company as an entrepreneur, I wanted to do every job because I wanted to know what they would be going through to do the job. And so all the junior level roles, I had to do the media monitoring, the clipping. I had to know what does it take to do that job in order for me to know who to hire or how to hire for that role. I mean, Naguib was a tremendous mentor and teacher. It taught me a lot about loyalty, hard work. Like he was the first one in, the last one out. Like, I mean, nothing is beneath you when your name is on the door. What I learned from him till this day has carried me in my career. And he knows that because I tell him quite a bit whenever I see him. And I also feel that if you get asked to do something that you think you're not qualified for, you're overqualified or underqualified for, put in the hard work, put in the effort, put your head down. And that's why I wrote the first rule of the book is stay low, keep moving. Stay low, put the hard work in and just keep moving. Despite the fact that you might not think it's the best job in the world. Yeah. Where is this taking me? Why am I doing this? This is a waste of my time. Whatever you might be thinking, know that if you put your head down, you put the hard work, you put in the effort, the results always come. Not might come, they always come.
I hear it a lot when I speak to people in the corporate world. Mostly, it's like, oh, okay, I'll take this job for a little bit. I'll try to find something else. Meanwhile, I mean, is that a good strategy?
No, because you want to show your intentions. I feel like if you really care about this role, you got to show up for it, and you have to give it your all. Like if you're using it for a stepping stone, imagine what they might feel. Somebody also told me this advice once: be careful who you step on the way up the ladder. because you will certainly see them on the way back down. That stayed with me. Don't use somebody for a stepping stone. Don't treat people how you don't want to be treated.
Absolutely.
Don't go into a job thinking, okay, I'm going to go in and get some money and get some experience until I find something better.
Yeah.
Have the courage to find something better from the first time.
Exactly.
Have the courage to say no, to bet on yourself to get the right thing. And then the next best thing.
Agreed. Absolutely. So let's talk a little bit about brand building, right?
Yes.
Because that's what you're the master of. And, you've worked with some really amazing celebrities that you've mentioned. First, is it just for like entrepreneurs and freelancers and so on, brand building, or is it for everybody?
No, I mean, I just got done talking to a big company this morning. Building your brand.
Or like CEOs.
Yeah. So building your brand is something that a lot of people are like, oh, I don't want to be a social media influencer. Or I don't need to be a CEO or an executive or a founder of a company to build my brand. When you think about personal branding as your reputation, everybody cares about their reputation. Take out the word personal brand and replace it with the word reputation. And then don't tell me, Lulu, that you don't care about your reputation, right? So if you work at a company, you need to have a strong personal brand, i.e. reputation. Are you a team builder? Are you a team player? Are you a good listener? Are you a collaborator? Are you resourceful? Are you a go-getter? Are you aggressive? Are you problem solver? Are you problem maker? Like, what is your reputation at work?
Mm-hmm.
That matters. That determines, are you going to get that promotion? Are you going to get to make more money? Are you going to get assigned the projects that will make you a rock star, that will get you that promotion? Your personal brand at work is more relevant and important than ever, especially if you work in a virtual working environment or a hybrid. Because how do you build your brand when you're on a screen? How do people get to know your personality, your skills, your experience? You need to be out there doing it.
Mm-hmm.
No one's going to do it for you. And so I think the reason why I love this topic, the reason why it's the biggest chapter in the book, is because I feel like you need to be protecting and building your reputation, because if you're not, I can guarantee somebody else is doing it for you and it's not what you want.
Yeah.
So that's the reason why I care so much about this. Now, entrepreneurs need to focus on it, because if you have a good reputation, you're going to be able to attract investors. You're going to be able to attract the talent that you want for your business.
Yeah.
And you're going to be able to work with the best partners and suppliers or people that can really help that collaborate with you for your business. And a lot of entrepreneurs are like, I don't want to put myself out there. I don't want to, personal brand does not mean personal life at all. Personal branding is about not self-promotion, but idea promotion. It's not about self-promotion. It's about thought leadership. Like, what are some of the things you do in your company and your culture? Share that. People want to know. I'd like to work for that company if I understand their culture. I might be a customer of that company because I like how they treat their employees. I might like that company because I understand more about their values. Consumers are conscious consumers. We really make purchase decisions based on how companies and people act. If somebody is terrible to their employees, we won't give them our money. We won't visit that restaurant. We won't go to that store. If they have bad business practices, we are very powerful with our purchasing power. That's your reputation.
Yeah.
That's your personal brand.
I think maybe people might think of personal brand as I have to be on social media and I have to be maybe an influencer, as you said.
No,
like,
not at all.
It doesn't.
In fact, what you do as your personal brand and reputation offline is way more important than what you do online. Because online, you can be whoever you want. You can show people the highlights and show them this is who I am, but it may not be who you really are.
Yeah.
You might be a jerk in person, or you might not be as forgiving and kind and patient and warm and friendly, and you might not be.
Yeah.
So you need to be that first in real life, because those are the fabric of your relationships. That's the fabric of your reputation. It comes from how do you treat people? How do you show up for people? Your barista, to your colleague, to your family members, to your neighbors. That's how a reputation gets built. And think about the people that you think have good reputations. Why do you think they have a good reputation?
They're probably accomplished at something. And I think another one, which is important, is I feel good around them.
Yeah. They make you feel something.
Yeah.
They evoke an emotion.
Yeah.
You feel they're real.
Yeah.
You feel they're being transparent. You feel they're being authentic. They feel like you're getting the real deal. Like, that matters. Like, we can spend our time with anybody we want. We can turn it on and turn it off.
Yeah.
Who we consume on social, who we spend time with in real life. We have more control and desires. Like, our time is limited. We're going to be very picky about who do we put in our circle, because we know how much that influences us.
You work with Gary Vee, who's like the master of this
Yes.
kind of hustle culture, personal brand, put content out there, like, I don't
Gary's
know, 5
always
pieces
pushing.
a week. And
No, 5 pieces a day.
A day?
He's like,
Okay,
he's like
well.
5 pieces a day. Volume is what he
Yeah,
professes.
I mean, is that, surely this is not for everybody. I don't know. I feel like not everybody should be telling us what they think on the internet.
So it's not for everybody, but it works. And it's like a lot of people have goals of things they want to do, and they're here. Are they willing to fill the gap to put in that effort?
Mm-hmm.
So let me give you an example based on what you just said. I have an Instagram account and I post once a day. I feel like that's pretty good for me. I'm going to post once a day. I can be consistent. I can do that. And then I chatted with Gary and he's like, you're going to do this book. You have a lot of stories to tell. You need to go and you need to be posting 4 times a day. And I'm like, oh, that's a lot. I'm getting more audience in 4 posts a day than I ever thought imaginable.
Oh, so you're doing it.
It works.
You're posting 4 times a day.
I'm posting 4 times a day. And at some point I was like on LinkedIn, I'm like, I'm going to post 10 times a day because I have a lot of ideas. I want to post stuff.
On LinkedIn. Okay.
LinkedIn. The growth has been enormous. It works.
So volume works.
Volume works. And it's also not everyone's seeing your feed. So like you may think that 4 times a day is a lot, but the way that the algorithm works, you might only see 1.
That's true.
So I got to put 4 to get you 1. If I only put 1, you're going to miss it. I didn't know how valuable that advice is until I tried it. Because he's like, everybody, he can tell you what to do, 1 through 10. Are you willing to actually do 1 through 10?
Yeah.
Most people aren't.
Yeah.
Most people want the results, but don't want to put in the effort. Are you willing to put in the effort? And when I came to do this book, I was like, I don't want to say that I didn't give it my effort. I don't want to say like I didn't put in the effort. If I put in the effort and it doesn't work, then at least I put in the effort.
Yeah.
Imagine how I would have felt if I didn't put in the effort and I shortchanged myself because I'm like, this is good enough. It's never good enough.
It's interesting. I mean, I love what you're saying. I'm just trying to think why I don't do things sometimes, like why I don't post, actually barely post, but I post like stories, but not posts. Anyway, I think sometimes maybe going back to our earlier discussions on being in the public, right, on doing things in public, is that you go and you do all the effort, let's say, which is what you're doing with your book. And suppose like the book is a flop, okay, which is obviously it's not.
Yeah, but it could have been.
Yeah, but then I think maybe people hedge. I'm just trying to.
Yeah, I think we don't do it because we're afraid of failure.
Yeah.
We're afraid of judgment. We're afraid of what people will think. I think a lot of people, like initially when I was doing these videos talking about comms and like in my experience, I did have that self-doubt. Like people are gonna say, who does she think she is?
Yeah.
Like, what is she doing?
Yeah.
But then when I keep posting it, they're like, oh, that's what she actually does. And they keep coming back and they keep learning and they keep getting nuggets. And I'm giving away value and I'm giving it away for free. And I have good intentions of caring about what my audience cares about. Then people know that's what you're about. It's a very weird dynamic. Like, initially when I started posting a lot, I was like, oh, my family's going to go, what is she doing? Like Auntie Maha, what is she doing, Auntie Maha? But then I was like, this is what I do. Like in order for me to scale people, I have to give away pieces of myself to help other people. And it works. And I'm having so much fun doing it too.
Yeah. I think that's the trick probably, is to enjoy it.
Enjoy it. Yeah.
Versus like thinking about it as something I like. There's a checklist.
I have to do. Yeah. I like telling stories. I like doing in different formats. I like learning what works. I don't mind if I do a post that doesn't get views because I'm like, I want it to be authentic to who I am. Like I felt like I wanted to share this. I'm going to share it.
Yeah.
Whether or not people receive it, that's the hard part of like, a lot of people don't want to take that first step because they're insecure, they're overthinking, they're worried about what other people think. I was all of those things.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm going to start with the podcast because a podcast, you don't have to see me. I don't have to worry if I'm fat. I don't have to worry if my hair looks bad. I don't want to think about what I look like. I just want to tell the stories. I'm going to do it through the mic, through audio.
Yeah.
Until I got confidence and like telling stories, sharing more. Everyone has to do what makes them feel comfortable. That's something they can do authentically and then they can do consistently. Because if it feels like a chore, you're not going to do it.
Yeah. Where do you put a line between like being authentic? Because everybody tells you have to be authentic when you're, brand building, on when you're talking, especially on social media and so on, and sharing way too much. Because you said
Yeah.
You know,
Sometimes my sister's like, well, I don't understand why you post that. I'm like,
yeah.
she does. She's like, I don't like it when you post your outfits. I don't like this. And she's like, why do you do that? And why do you like, I always try to feel like something that I would never regret being on the front page of a newspaper.
Mm-hmm.
Something that I won't embarrass my family. Like I would make sure I don't do those things. Like I put out enough to show who I am. Like I'm a dog mom. I live between Dubai and Minnesota. I'm proud to be Egyptian. Like I want to share enough about who I am so people see me, my values. A lot of what's in that book, I've never discussed publicly before. Like I'm openly now telling people I'm 54. Like no, everyone thinks I'm like in my 30s. I'm like, I've been working for 30 years, you know, or they think I'm in my like young 40s. And like a lot of Arab women don't talk about their age.
No.
At all.
Yeah.
And they're like, what? You're 54? I'm actually turning 55 next week. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel comfortable sharing it because it's authentic to who I am. Like it's just a number.
I think when I read in your book how you speak about your mom and your dad, it really like I loved you for it. You know, I felt like, wow, I saw you in a completely different light.
Way. Yeah. A lot of people. So my mother got multiple sclerosis when I was 14. Multiple sclerosis is your brain can't send messages to your body. And so she was fully handicapped. Like she couldn't feed herself, bathe herself, clothe herself. I took her to physical therapy. I stayed home and took care of my mother for 22 years. She had that illness from the time I was 14 until 22 years later. And then during that time, I became very, very close to my dad. So like my dad would come home from work and like my mom wouldn't be able to ask him like, how was your day? So I'm like, Dad, how was your day? Like I was trying to like step in and like help him. And he was the dean of a business school in the university in the US. And so he has a lot of work functions. And my mom didn't want to go in a wheelchair and didn't want people to stare at her. So she's like, go with your father, go with your dad to the university, go to the events. And I'd get dressed up as a little kid or 14, 15, 16, 18, go get dressed with my dad in formal attire and go to these events. And he taught me how to network and work a room. And I became very, very close to my father. During the time where my mom became very sick. Then my dad got sick and his disease was terminal. And they told him you will live about a year, which was alarming because you have a timestamp or an end date. It seems like nothing can happen. Mm-hmm. And, there's so much you want to get done. And now you have a deadline that you can't change. And he deteriorated very, very quickly, very quickly. My dad was very active, very loud, very fun. Most of my friends would come to Egypt and just hang out with my dad because my dad was so fun. He was full of life. And then he became completely incapacitated. With ALS, with Lou Gehrig's disease, your mind is intact, but you can't send messages to anything. So it starts like at your feet and then you atrophy. Basically, your muscles wilt away to the point where you can't swallow, then you can't talk. And, communicating, I had to like figure out ways to communicate with him because he couldn't write. In the beginning, he was writing messages, but then when the disease got to his hands, he couldn't use his hands. And then we were like, how do you do eye signal? Like he was fully cognizant. Like my dad is a published author, a management professor. He's written countless books that university students still till today study from his teachings. It was devastating. It was devastating to see both of my parents. I'm like, what are the odds that I have two parents with neurological diseases who both need full-time nursing care? I ran a mini hospital in my house. I had 2 nurses per shift, 3 shifts a day per parent. Then I had to have a cook who would blend their meals because they both had feeding tubes. And then I had to like have help and I was paying the bills. I had to go to work every day. I had to make all the medical decisions. I don't know how I did it. I just know that I just did it. When I look back when I was even writing the book and thinking about it, and even my sister who was very much with me every step of the way, she came to Egypt several times during that time. I feel the importance of taking care of your family and showing up for your family is the most important thing I think in life. And when I think about all my accomplishments in my career and all the cool things I've done, it pales into comparison to properly doing everything I could for my mom and dad. And it wasn't an obligation. It was something I really, truly wanted to do. They had given me everything. And I felt like every success I had in my life after they both passed away, I feel it's because I'm living off rida of my parents. And I don't know how to say that in English, but
blessing.
The blessing of my parents that if you do good for the people that you care about the most, that they are always going to be watching over you and giving to you. And I feel like the reason I told the story in the book, which is, it's not about my personal life, this book is not a memoir, is because I want people to not be defined by the bad or the difficult things that happen to them. And how do you take your struggles and turn them into strengths? And how do you take your setbacks and turn them into comebacks? Like, I learned a lot about empathy, about how to be patient. Like, I was struggling with, like, this is terrible. Like, I was really, I lost both of my parents. They died within a little over a year with each other. So not only did we go through the suffering and pain of them losing their lives, and then back to back, I was standing at both funerals. And I'm like, I just feel like I was just here yesterday standing at my dad passed away first. And then my mom, who had held on for 22 years, just like lost the love of her life and let go. And then she died. And I was like, who am I if I'm not a caretaker? It was a big part of my identity. Maha's the strong one. Maha's the caretaker. And I was like, well, who's going to take care of me? I have to take care of me. I have to figure out what I care about and who I want to be and what mark do I want to leave on this world. And it's the last rule in the book. It's called no regrets, because if you have something that happens to you, don't regret it. Use it as something that can really change you, improve you, motivate you. And that did for me.
So being self-reliant is, I take care of me?
No, being self-reliant is coming to the table. First of all, it's betting on yourself. Knowing that you have the skills and tools within yourself if you just believe in yourself and have the confidence to trust yourself. The term self-reliance is all about like being independent and like, I'm going to rely on myself to get through. That's not what this book is about. It's not teaching you to not need anybody. It's not teaching you to rely on yourself because you know best. It's saying, come to the table with something. Don't expect handouts. Don't expect people to invest in you. Go learn for yourself. Don't expect people to bring value to you. Bring value to them first. Don't expect people's relationships to serve you. Go build your own network. And so I want to build my network before I reach out to somebody else's. So how can you have those cards in your hands? How can you be the most powerful person you can be? How did I get to work with all these celebrities or CEOs or big tech companies? I learned how to create value for them. I learned how to build my reputation and personal brand so I was credible. I learned how to build relationships with good people multiple times over years. I learned the value of creating opportunities instead of waiting for people to bring them to me. And I learned, which is rule number 4, you have to invest in yourself. You have to take advantage. We live in one of the best times in the world ever.
Yeah.
We can learn anything.
Yeah. And through social media, you can do anything as well. And you can monetize it.
You can monetize, and it's free.
Yeah.
Lulu,
Yeah.
podcasts are for free.
Yeah.
The internet is for free.
Yeah.
YouTube is for free.
You know, I always think about it when like I'm talking to a younger generation, or even actually I have some people within my extended family. They were looking for jobs at some point, and like, I don't know what to do. No one's hiring me. I'm applying to all these companies and so on. Like, go on social media, just create something. Blog about something, do some content.
Something you're passionate about.
Yeah.
Even if you love your full-time job, challenge yourself to learn a new skill. You want to learn how to play paddle? Do you want to learn how to play piano? Do you want to learn how to use Photoshop and create content and post it? Do you want to learn how to make jewelry? Are you really good at baking and want to like start doing baking for a side hustle for birthday parties because you just enjoy it?
Yeah.
Careers are no longer linear, like just doing one thing. We want to have other things fill our cups. And that makes you better at your job because you have other skills. Your brain is learning new things.
Neuroplasticity.
It's so important.
I've changed careers 5 times. So I know exactly what you're talking about,
Yes.
about careers not being linear.
Yeah.
I
could quit my job today and start something completely new and have confidence I'll be able to do it because I have access to the internet and I'm willing to work hard.
And you're self-reliant.
Yeah, I'm willing to put in the effort, and I'm willing to learn, and I have access to it. I just have to go get it. A lot of people don't want to put in the effort.
Yeah. I love it. To make a bet on, you're making
Yourself.
a bet on yourself. I mean, that's.
Try it.
Yeah.
Try it and see what happens.
Yeah.
You'd be pleasantly surprised.
Yeah. And that could be, I think, through everything, right? It could be in your personal relationships. It could be in your work.
Yeah. I think a lot of people too, when they read the book, they're like, this isn't about, it's your personal and your professional. It's not just how you live your life.
Yeah.
at work. It's really about things you can do in your personal life as well.
What else can we tell people about brand building, especially let's say when they're doing it online? What should they be mindful of?
Yeah. So a couple things. Your personal brand is made up of three things: your skills, your experience, your personality, right? So show people who you are authentically, obviously, but try to pick a format that works for you, right? If you're going to do LinkedIn, you're going to do a newsletter, you're going to post once a week, but whatever you can do, try to be consistent about doing it. And if you're not sure what I should be posting about, what should my personal brand be about, ask people. Mm-hmm. The easiest way to find out what your audience wants is to simply ask them. It's not that hard. Just do a post. Would you want comms tips from me or entrepreneurship tips from me? Do you want women leadership, or my productivity hack? I always ask people, like, what is the thing that you think I can bring the most value to you? Is you want to learn about how to build your personal brand in comms, or do you want to learn about how to be an entrepreneur and build a business and get your first client? And how do you price for your clients? And how do you market your services? Those are two different things. Mm-hmm. I can do all of them, but ask people. Ask people, what am I known for? What are 3 words that you would use to describe me? Find out. And then are those 3 words consistent with what you want? Mm-hmm. Then if not, then you need to work a little bit harder to get into the 3 words you're looking for. Yeah. But having that self-awareness and asking is key.
As an entrepreneur, money is a big deal, right? You have to be able to make money.
Payroll, yes. I can't sleep every night because you have to think about things that, like, as a business owner, you're always on.
Yeah. And you are in an interesting business because it's a service, right? Like, you're not selling someone this and they have to pay this. You're selling someone your time, your expertise, your network, whatever, everything that you've learned put together.
Yeah.
How do you, and I think this applies to everybody who is maybe a solopreneur or who wants to offer a service. How do you price your service? Like, how do you monetize the value?
The hardest thing. The hardest thing is figuring out, especially if you're starting a business, what your prices should be in the market, because you don't know what your competitors are pricing. Yeah. You don't know what their offers look like. So you have to do the homework. First of all, you have to see, what are your expenses? What do you need to do to cover your expenses? Mm-hmm. And then how much margin are you willing to add on top of that so that you can get your foot in the door? So do you need to, price a little bit lower just to get the experience, to get that certain client? Like, I might price something much lower than I would normally do because I want an opportunity to learn. I'm not going to worry about earning. So I might do that on one client basis because I know that's a good opportunity for me I'm going to get so much more from that experience than the money. So I think about that. But I think your pricing, you have to start with, what are your bare minimum expenses? What are you willing to sacrifice in terms of margin to make sure that you can do that? Can you do that for everybody? And then I always think, for me as an entrepreneur, the number one thing that I care about is my people. I always think people over profit. I don't want to take a project that's going to burn out my people. I don't want to take a project that's going to make my people hate themselves or hate this project or hate this client. So I always think about, when I'm pricing something, what's the price I can do that gives us enough resources so I don't tap out my people. If they can only afford 1 person when I know it probably needs 2 people, then I always think about my people as well.
So you do a bottoms-up approach.
Yeah.
So you look at your expenses and then you add the margin and so on. Because I think there's a psychology to pricing, right? I mean, if you price high, people will assume that you have more value to offer, right? If you price low, people would not, ascribe value to your work. It's a tricky one.
Yeah, it's a tricky one, but it's also, like, based on experience too. Like, I've been doing this for 30 years. So, like, I can charge more than someone who doesn't have as much experience. I believe that you have that value. Plus, when clients hire me or my company, they not just get the service, they're getting all of my relationships, all of my network, all of my learning. I've worked for the biggest companies in the world, so I know about how they handle the crises and what are the things that we can do to get better. And working around a Gary Vee and a Naguib Sawiris and a Sheikh Mohammed, like, that's priceless. Right? The experience I have from those people alone is carrying me forward in ways that I'm going to be able to tap into that learning to share it with other people as well.
Yeah. Okay. Well, because I think I find that it's quite a challenge for myself, and I think for a lot of people as well. How do you, especially when the value is intangible? Yeah. How do you price that value? Like, things like, as you said, introductions. I mean, I've been here for 21 years in the UAE, built a great network, and then people come up to me and they want introduction to this and that and so on. I'm like, okay, but I mean, I've spent 20 years building this network. Yeah. As we said at the beginning, it takes years of deposits, right? Until you make
A withdrawal. Yeah.
of withdrawal.
I also think too, like, don't sell yourself short. You know, if you price at a level that you might be in your mind, I think I'm pricing too high, don't. Stay with where you think, trust your gut. If you think your prices should be 1,000, they should be 1,000.
Yeah.
And people who value you will come to you. And you're going to knock on 3 doors, four doors, 3 are going to say no. There's one that's going to take it. Stick to your guns, stick to your values, stick to who you are. People will value you if you value yourself first.
Absolutely.
It's really important. Like I even for my company too, like I don't do RFPs. I don't enter RFPs. I just don't think as a principle, it's something I want to do because I don't want to be judged on a piece of paper based on price.
Yeah. That's what it will end up being.
Yeah.
Anyway.
All business is personal for me. I have to have a relationship with the person or know somebody that knows them. I won't work with anybody that comes in off the street. I really care about doing things for people that I can put passion and heart behind because they'll get more from me and I'll get better results for them. And 2, I value what I think is fair. And I know that there's 100 other people that can do the same thing for cheaper, then go work with them because I don't want you to feel like you resent having to pay that fee for my work. If you really feel you can get it someplace else, please go do that. I want you to do what makes you comfortable, what you can afford, and I will support you in any way possible.
But you've taken risks as well, right? You've worked with people.
I've worked for free.
A
lot. I worked for Matt Higgins for free. I did that because I wanted to build a relationship with him. I wanted to see what I was capable of. Matt Higgins is now on UAE Shark Tank. He's now a client. I now sit on the board of several of his companies, but I had to put in the effort first. I had to create value first. I had to show him my good intentions. I had to be a long-term player.
Yeah. And sometimes it might not work, right?
And sometimes it might not work out. But I actually, when I did the work for free for Matt, I really just wanted to spend time with him to ask him about a business idea that I had. That was my first and only intention. And I said, if I do a good job by this, he's going to be impressed by me and he might give me the right advice and he'll invest in spending time with me and see me as a leader. And anything else that comes out of that is, cherry on the cake or icing on the cake. But I developed a real relationship with him and I have a lot of respect for him. And when I met him, I was going to meet him. And before I went to go meet him, I'm like, I got to buy his book and read his book. And then once I read his book, I'm like, I have to spit with this guy.
So you did what I did then.
You have to read it.
I read your book.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah. Okay. Well, so I think it shouldn't feel transactional, and I think the other person shouldn't feel that it's transactional.
Yeah, I think we live in a world today.
I'm doing this because I want something from you.
Yeah, we live in a world today where a lot of people want that instant gratification. We expect things like I'm going to do this, and I expect you to do something in return. I'm going to make an introduction for you, and then you owe me one.
Yeah.
Don't live in that world. Don't live in the world where you take favors for people and owe people shit. Don't do that. It doesn't work out. And it's not necessary. It's very short-term thinking. If you have good intentions, truly just do. It will come back to you.
You have the time, you have the, you want to put in the effort, you want to work with that person. Absolutely. Rule number 4, you talk about unlearning.
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about unlearning?
Yeah, I think, times have changed. And a lot of the ideas that we may have grown up with or concepts that we may have been taught aren't really relevant anymore. And what can we do to be better people in terms of how we're thinking about those ideas? What do we need to unlearn that's no longer serving us? What assumptions can I question that I always thought that this is the way things should be? One of the assumptions is where you went to school determined who you were going to become. I'm going to unlearn that. Because I don't want to judge people based on their degrees and their experience. People don't hire on CVs anymore based on where they went to school and what their experience is. They look at their skills, their personality. What things did they learn outside of the job? That's a skill. That's something you should unlearn, is how you hire people. Don't hire people based on what they put on paper. Evaluate them for their empathy, for their communication skills, for how they treat other people, for how curious they are. For what relationships do they bring to the company? That's just an example.
Yeah. I think it's such an important skill to have because I think we grow up having so many biases and having so many, I am like this because this is how I am.
Or how it should be.
Yeah.
That's like out the window now.
Yeah.
It's completely out the window now.
You have to be, you can't be rigid like this.
No, you can't. Times have changed and so should you. And you need to evolve because if you don't evolve, you will be left behind.
And your last rule, which is what is it? Live with no regrets. What does that mean?
I mean, I talked a little bit about it in the context of my parents about don't let anything that happens to you define you.
Mm-hmm.
What are some things that you can do to turn any setbacks you have into comebacks, turn those struggles into strengths? And think about, I don't want to go through life wishing I could have done something or thinking I should have done that. I should have taken that trip. I should have taken that job. I don't want to live in woulda, shoulda, coulda. And that's what I'm talking about. If there's something you're passionate about doing, you've always wanted to do it, why aren't you doing it? Don't have that regret. Like, we are only on this planet for so long. Life is so, so short. So many people are struggling around the world. If there's something you really care about doing, don't be a waiter, do it. And don't have that regret. Don't regret not taking that shot. Don't regret not learning to play piano. Don't regret not taking that trip. Don't regret taking that job you always wanted to do. Don't regret starting your side hustle. Don't regret it.
Mm-hmm.
Just do it. And I really want people to think about the things, if they were to say, I wish I would have done this.
Yeah.
They
say there's like a graveyard of unfinished books and, uncompleted lessons of music and things like that, where people start with something and then they sort of never finish
you've
it.
always wanted to have a podcast and now you're all in because you have to do this. This is your time.
Yeah.
This is your moment.
I think there's also an important point here, which is, and this is something I've learned, is that make a decision. I think sometimes when you have options, you sit and you debate, okay, which one is the best decision? And then you start thinking, okay, what does that mean? And sometimes just make a decision. It's not going to be the right decision necessarily or the wrong decision. But just make a decision.
I always talk about this. There are no wrong decisions.
Yeah.
You make a decision with the information you have at that time.
Exactly.
And then you make a decision. You make a judgment call.
Yeah.
And then if it doesn't work out for whatever reason, you make another decision and you pivot. Life is full of pivots.
Exactly.
Do not think that once you've taken a decision, you're down a path, you can't turn around. Turn around. It's your life.
And does forgiveness come into this, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, you forgive yourself for the mistakes you make. Forgive yourself for the things that you messed up on. I think like nobody's harder on you than you.
Yeah.
Nobody's harder on me than me. I self-impose the pressure. I self-impose the expectations. I don't need to be back to back booking myself all the time. I want to like put in the effort. I want to say I've done it all. I don't have anything else to prove. You're trying to prove it to yourself. And the very last line of the book is, what's the story? You know, we talk a lot about storytelling and the importance of storytelling, connecting with people. The most important story is the story you tell yourself.
Yeah.
Why are you doing this? Why aren't you doing this? Are you doing it because you want people to pat you on the back? Are you doing it for the accolades? Are you doing it for people on social media to see you doing it? You actually care about doing it? Are you doing it for you? Are you doing it because you think it's valuable? What are the things that you really want to say you did, regardless if somebody was watching or not?
Yeah.
That's what matters.
That's great advice. I'm going to ask you a few rapid fire questions,
okay, good.
and then we're wrapping. So, if you weren't in media and comms, what else would you be doing?
I'd be a teacher. I grew up a family of educators. My uncle, my aunt, my dad, my grandfather. I like teaching. I like being in the classroom. When I was in graduate school, I taught an 8 a.m. class. All the kids walked into class with these huge things of Diet Coke to stay awake at 8 a.m. I love being in the classroom.
What would you teach?
I was teaching speech communications at the time,
What
interpersonal
would you
communications.
teach,
I probably teach something related to communications. Yeah.
All right. Okay. What do you do to unwind?
I do a lot of things. I play with my dog. I play tennis. I'm a huge, huge sports junkie. So I'm either going to an NFL game, going to an NBA game, going to a tennis tournament. I listen to a lot of music. I'm a huge Swiftie.
Okay.
Yeah.
Really? She got to you as well.
She got me. Actually, I wasn't until I went to the show.
Okay.
And then I listened to her every day after the show for like a year. Like I knew a couple of her songs, 22. I knew a bunch of Taylor Swift songs, but I didn't become like, she's an empowering woman. She exemplifies everything about this book. She wasn't a waiter. She went and recreated all of her music. She re-recorded all her movie. That was a don't be a waiter move. She relied on herself to build her personal brand.
Yeah.
She did her own way, her own ways. Like the industry worked one way and she worked another way. She created value for countless of people, teenagers, children, adults. You go to this concert, it's 5-year-olds to 95-year-olds. It's the happiest place on earth. She wasn't a waiter. She created value for other people. She unlearned and relearned. I mean, there's so much about how she relied on herself to build her name. It's empowering. Her story is empowering. She'd been knocked down several times and got back up bigger and better the next time. She cared about her reputation. She rebuilt her reputation after she got that award and a lot happened to her. So I feel like that's what I do to unwind. I play tennis. I watch sports. I play sports.
Taylor Swift.
And I listen to Taylor Swift.
Good. Okay. What makes you happy?
My family. Spending time with my family.
Okay. What do you love about people?
Their stories, connecting with them, learning from them. I love to network because I like to meet people. Like I'm just so excited every time I can go to a room full of strangers where it's very daunting for a lot of people. For me, I'm like, put me in. I want to go meet everybody.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah. That's nice. What is the best learning you got from a client?
Gary's taught me the most, I think, as a client. I've worked with him for almost a decade now. I mean, how long time do we have? I can tell you 100 things I've learned from this gentleman, but kindness matters. Don't big time people. Be the bigger person. Like if there's a conflict, you're not going to win. There's no points to win. Those are some of the biggest things I've learned from him.
Okay. And if you're granted one wish by a genie, what would you ask for?
Can I have a private jet so I can go anywhere I want, anytime I want? That's what I want. I want to be able to go to Paris for dinner. I want to be able to go on vacation. If I could have one thing, I would want to just be able to travel whenever I wanted. I just need a private jet.
Well, you just need to hang out with Gary Vee then more.
Yeah. Him and Naguib. Naguib has a couple. Yeah. That's the one thing I think.
That's what's missing. A private jet.
So I could just go wherever I wanted. I want to go to see a tennis tournament in Australia. I've been to the US Open. I've been to Wimbledon. I've been to the French. I haven't been to the Australian Open. So I need a private jet for that.
That's a fair ask. Good luck. I hope you get it.
Yeah, I hope I get it too.
Maha, it was great to host you. Is there anything else you want to leave our audience with? Something for them to think about, maybe?
Yeah, I think it's one thing I'll just let people think about if they read the book, and in general, even if they don't read the book, if not now, when? And if not you, who? Mm-hmm. Now's the time.
So the book is called 7 Rules of Self-Reliance.
Yes,
it's available on Amazon.
They can get it on Amazon. Follow me. I do a LinkedIn newsletter. I do a lot with my community. I do a lot of free coaching, masterclasses for free. I believe in scaling and helping a lot of people as possible. Join my community, and I'd love to connect with you all. If you read the book, if you buy the book, tag me, tag Lulu, share that you heard it on the show. Tell me what you liked about the book.
And if they want to tag you, your family name is different. So
Maha Abouelenein.
Maha Abouelenein.
Yeah. I mean, if they look me up on Instagram or Twitter, it's Maha Abouelenein, but it'll say Maha Abouelenein is the handle.
It was so great to meet you.
Lulu, thank you.
Seriously, I loved your book. I love what you're doing. And I wish you all the best, really, truly.
Thank you, Habibti. Thank you.
Thank you so much for tuning into this episode of Conversations with Lulu with Maha Abouelenein. I hope you found it insightful. If you want to buy Maha's book, you can go to Amazon and look for 7 Rules of Self-Reliance. As usual, don't forget to check out conversationswithlulu.com to listen to all the other episodes, and make sure you are subscribed wherever you are listening or watching this episode. Do spend a couple of minutes to leave us a rating and a review. It really helps in getting the show discovered. And make sure you share with family, friends, and whoever would benefit from this content. I'll see you in a few weeks.